What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and there has been a lot of talk about UFOs lately. And I don't just mean on my channel. I've been talking about UFOs more lately because the government and the military has been talking about them more lately. I mean, just the other day we had a special Senate hearing about UFOs, and now the Space Force chief just issued a new warning. Now, we will get into that warning in just a moment, but first, I want to talk about why I think this is happening. I think that they're starting to talk more about UFOs now for three different reasons. For one, I think we live in a day and age where everyone is walking around with a high-tech camera. It's going to get hard to explain the various things that people are seeing in the sky. It's getting harder and harder to explain the various videos of weird aerial phenomenons or whatever that you want to call it that people are capturing. So I think that they have to be a little more honest and transparent in today's day and age than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago. You know what I mean? I mean, everyone's walking around with the camera. Every day people are uploading new videos of what they think are UFOs in the sky, strange lights, you name it. And they can only pretend that things are balloons or swamp gas for so long. So I think they're finally being transparent that, yeah, there are things flying around up there that we don't really know what it is, but there are such things. Number two, I've said it time and time again. I won't go into full detail here, but I believe a lot of this transparency is because they're trying to soften us up and gain our approval for a war with China. That's why most of the UFOs that they talk about are basically blamed on China. They're saying, oh, it's Chinese technology that we're not aware of yet. That's basically one of the main excuses they use for UFOs these days. So I think them being more transparent and releasing videos and talking about these situations more openly, I think it's because they want us to worry about China, and they basically want to blame a lot of this stuff on China so that we are more open to war with them if it does come to that. Hopefully it doesn't. And number three, last but not least, I think a lot of this transparency is coming because we have a Space Force now. And you know, when you have a Space Force, you need to have a reason for them to exist. And you need to have a reason as to why you're pumping, certain amounts of dollars into the Space Force every year. So it doesn't, go over my head that as soon as we established a Space Force, all of a sudden they felt comfortable releasing little videos of UFOs and things they couldn't explain in the sky. So I think that's another big reason why now they're just, openly talking about some of these things. But anyway, speaking of the Space Force, the Space Force chief just issued this warning saying that the U.S. is facing a new era of threats beyond Earth. General Chance Saltzman took the stage for his keynote speech at the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs in Colorado this week. His first message was simple. The U.S. is in a new era of space activity. The threats that we face to our in-orbit capabilities from our strategic competitors have grown substantially. Saltzman, the U.S. Space Force second ever chief of space operations, said in a CNBC interview after the speech, the congestion we're seeing in space with tracked objects and the number of satellite payloads and just the launches themselves have grown at an exponential rate. I want to make sure that we are thinking about our processes and procedures differently, he says. Manifest Space Podcast, his first broadcast interview since becoming the service's highest ranking military official last November. The message comes at a key moment as space rapidly commercializes and a heightened geopolitical backdrop increasingly sees threats extending beyond Earth to a domain for which rules of engagement remain unclear. Military experts say space is likely to be the front line in any future conflicts, a battlefield that could extend to the private sector and impact civilians in real time. Look no further than Russia's invasion of Ukraine as an example. Recall the unprecedented cyber attack on the European communications network of U.S. satellites operator Viasat, just as Russian soldiers mobilized to cross sovereign boundaries. Saltzman said the space-based tactics of adversaries like Russia and China run the gamut from the communications jamming of the GPS constellation to lasers and dazzlers that interfere with cameras in orbit to prevent imagery collection, to anti-satellite missiles like the one Russia tested in late 2021. We're seeing satellites that can actually grab another satellite, grapple with it, and pull it out of its operational orbit. These are all capabilities they're demonstrating in orbit today. And so the mix of these weapons and the pace with which they've been developed is very concerning. It speaks to why, despite a wave of debates, the Space Force was briskly stood up in 2019 as the first new branch of the U.S. Armed Services in 7 decades. To respond to evolving threats and secure space assets more quickly, Saltzman is looking to further augment the service's capabilities to make satellite constellations more resilient and acquire more launch services by tapping into a burgeoning cadre of commercial space players. Case in point, the Space Force's recently announced procurement strategy for more launch services. The new dual-lane acquisition approach is intended to create more opportunities for rocket startups to compete for national security launch contracts. With business to be awarded next year, the National Security Space Launch Phase 3 is estimated to run into the billions of dollars and is expected to draw bids from the likes of Rocket Lab, Relatively Space, and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, among others. Phase 2 awards went to SpaceX and United Launch Alliance, a joint venture of Lockheed Martin and Boeing. An expanding budget helps too. While just a fraction of the country's overall defense budget, the Space Force's $30 billion request for fiscal 2024 represents a 15% increase from this year's enacted levels. This is a team sport, and none of it is going to be successful going in alone, Saltzman says. Now, what did you all notice about that information? As I was saying earlier, they basically blame Russia and China for all of these threats in outer space, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that per se, but I think it goes hand in hand with my point that they're using this new wave of UFO transparency to basically frighten us about China's capabilities in space. And to say, oh, these UFOs, they're all China, they're all Russia. And then They end out all of this with a lot of talk about money. Now, of course, defending the Earth from space invaders is not free. Defending America from China and Russia in space, it's not free. So I understand that money is involved. But, you can always follow the money trail. So when you're sitting here wondering, after all of these years of cover-ups, after all of these years of them hiding the truth and not telling us about UFOs, now they feel comfortable telling us because they want more money. They need more taxpayer dollars to go to the Space Force so they can build new space weaponry and space satellites with arms so they can robo-wrestle in orbit. Like, what are those robots? Rock'em sock'em robot satellites in space. That's what World War III is going to be. So, hey, of course, this is basically how I view it. They realize, hey, we got this new Space Force. We need money. We need to pump money into this. So let's just go ahead and release some UFO videos. We'll blame them on, our military enemies. And then we'll use that as an excuse as to why we need all this money. And, it is disappointing for me because I was happy somewhat that we were moving into this new age where they're openly talking about UFOs now. Because there's too much evidence out there, folks. I think at this point for there to be anyone out here denying the existence of UFOs. Okay? UFOs have been a thing for a while. Now, when I say UFOs, I don't necessarily mean aliens, but unidentified flying objects, aerial phenomenon that even our U.S. Air Force can't explain. That's been a thing for a while. It's been documented for years and years on end. That's not a conspiracy, it's facts. So, we're finally at this point where they're like, okay, we're going to show you some stuff. We're going to openly talk about this stuff. But it comes hand in hand with the time where y'all are asking for more money for a Space Force for, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems really insincere. So now we know it's not about them finally wanting to be truthful. It's not about them wanting to finally be more transparent. It's basically about money, as it always is. Now, that's not to say that UFOs aren't real, because we know they are. That's not to say that aliens don't exist. I believe they do. But I believe that we could basically answer a lot of the questions that we've had about, hey, why are they opening up about this stuff? A lot of it has to do with money. A lot of it has to do with money, which is not shocking. It's not shocking. It's as to be expected. But at the same time, it's facts. I mean, yes, they want money, but it's true that space is the new frontier. Some people don't even believe space exists. I do. And I do believe that the new front lines, maybe not now, but in the future, definitely. Cyber warfare and stuff like that, that's definitely a big part of modern warfare. So knowing that, other countries, and I'm sure we are too, are developing satellites that can grab other satellites and stuff, that's really interesting to me. And it sounds kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's scary and it sucks that this is where we're at, but hey, we're here, so might as well, look into things. So I do find it interesting that we're entering into that phase of, something that, like, something you would have only thought of, like, seen in sci-fi movies. Like, it's happening now in our lifetime. And I think that is amazing, but at the same time, very, very scary. Now, if only we used this technology, and if only we put these bright minds to work on things that would better the earth instead of destroying it, then we would be in a better place and in a better situation. But of course, we can only hope for the best and expect the worst. Let me know your thoughts about all of this, though, down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.